Dayaram Pradhan was born and raised in the Serendite Desert. To most, it is an unforgiving wasteland with nothing but sand and the rusting metal of long-dead mecha beast. But to Dayaram, it was his home. Despite the sands remaining ever-shifting, Dayaram felt he knew that desert better than he knew himself. Even from a young age, Dayaram had become enthralled with the sports of his people. Flag wardens, drop protectors, swift ball. But the one sport he never missed, long the nation's favorite pastime, recreant. Recreant is a sport that pins two teams against each other to hold a ball as long as possible. The catch? In addition to the two teams, there is a hostile mecha beast ready to mercilessly slaughter anyone holding the ball. The game plays until the ball rings, or until only one player is in play in the arena. Dayaram did find the violence to be entertaining, of course, but it was the strategies employed by the participants that kept him in the audience. The way each participant weaved about with the ball in hand, narrowly avoiding the mecha beast's attacks, it must have been thrilling. Dayaram liked to imagine himself in that arena, how he would carry his team to a glorious victory without so much as meeting eyes with the mecha beast. His mother didn't approve of his fantasies, but his father encouraged them, leading to many arguments. One windy night, Dayaram decided he would go out to fight a mecha beast. He fled from home as his parents were arguing, he couldn't care less about why, and flew off into the night, his only plan being to find a mecha beast and conquer it. As the sands swept into his face and battered his body, he trudged into the darkness, away from his family's home. After only a few minutes of walking, he turned back to look at his home. Barely seeing the light penetrate through the swirling sand, he briefly contemplated returning home. Deep in the back of his mind, he knew this could only end in disaster. But he shoved those thoughts deep down. He wanted, more than anything else, to take down a mecha beast. Conjuring mana into his knife, he used it to illuminate his way through the storm. He took each step carefully and thoughtfully, watching for anything that might be of danger to him beneath his feet. He didn't encounter much for some time. Nothing more than sand, some metal scraps, and the occasional desert plant barely managing in the harsh conditions. But after what felt like hours, Dayaram spotted a red light piercing through the darkness. It slightly shifted from side to side, bobbing up and down in an arcing motion. Could it be? Dayaram hurriedly ran toward the light, dimming the glow of his blade as to not attract attention to himself. As he approached the red light, he could hear the sounds of metal grinding against metal. Dayaram got even closer, now hearing loud thuds of what seemed to be heavy footsteps pounding against sand. They were hard to make out in the harsh wind, but they were there. Closing the distance, Dayaram saw a single metallic pillar reaching up into the darkness. It lifted well into the air, disappearing from view before crashing back down just a few feet to the left of where it had been. Dayaram wasn't sure how large this mecha beast was exactly, only that it towered well above him. How am I supposed to kill something like this? Doing his best to follow the mecha beast while also avoiding being crushed, Dayaram formulated a plan of attack. It wasn't much, but it was all he could think of. He held his hand out before him, conjuring mana into his hand, droplets appearing and dripping down his arm. He focused his mana into a sphere. A ball of light formed in his hand, strands of thin mana thrashing about like lightning. Loosing the sphere from his hand, he commanded the sphere to propel towards the mecha beast. The bolt of mana launched out and away from Dayaram, toward what he believed would be the mecha beast's body, only for it to curve away in the wind. The mecha beast stopped dead in its tracks, making one more thud as its leg met the ground. The storm may have felt loud before, but when the mecha beast stopped moving, it also stopped making noise entirely. The relative silence felt somewhat eerie to Dayaram. Dayaram conjured another mana bolt, hoping to appropriately compensate for the wind's direction with his next shot. He let the projectile streak well above him. The projectile missed just enough that it illuminated the mecha beast some, allowing Dayaram to make out part of its form. But the bolt's trajectory still led out and away. Going for one more shot, Dayaram made a fist as he conjured mana into his hand, only for the mecha beast to let out a haunting, mechanical roar, so loud it shook the sand beneath its feet. Dissipating the mana, Dayaram pressed his hands to his ears. It helped very little. As the mecha beast ended its bellowing, Dayaram uncovered his ears. Dayaram could hear the echoing of the mecha beast's roar return through the winds of the sandstorm. He felt a knot form in his stomach. He had upset a mecha beast much larger than him, and he knew he had to suffer the consequences. As the grinding of metal picked back up, Dayaram looked up to see the light of the mecha beast turn around. He took a few steps backward, watching as the mecha beast turned its light from looking up and away to down toward him. Squinting at what he assumed was something of an eye, red light engulfed Dayaram and the ground around him. The mecha beast let out another uncanny roar, moments before a single mechanical tendril leapt out of the darkness toward Dayaram. The tendril lashed the air next to Dayaram as he turned to run, producing a loud crack. Another tendril snapped the sand to the other side of him. It very narrowly missed his leg. A third tendril swept Dayaram's legs, landing him on his face. He flipped over to look at the mecha beast, a tendril lashing at his arm. It sliced clean through, leaving a significant gash at his shoulder. Another tendril lashed his leg, cutting him from hip to just below his knee. The creature roared as Dayaram screamed. A bolt of light flew through the sky, striking the mecha beast's side. It bursted into a white explosion, illuminating the entire mecha beast and everything in the surrounding area. The creature roared and creaked as it steadied itself. A pair of voices called his name through the storm. Dayaram recognized them as his parents. Dayaram's consciousness wavered. The world went silent around him. He closed his eyes, then opened them again to see his mother over him, and his father a few feet away, his arms outstretched, a white dome overhead. Dayaram allowed himself to fade into darkness, his pain overcoming him.